Hi everyone, I'm Jani Chitalia, and I think we'll wait for people to kind of join in initially, and then we'll get started with the presentation that we have here today on gut health and immunity, and specifically for pregnant women. I'm so grateful and thankful to the platform of Cod Life for having me here today, and I'm really excited to add value to all of you all today in terms of what we can do for our gut health and immunity in these challenging times of COVID, especially for all the pregnant women. So I hope everybody is doing well and taking care of themselves from home. And I hope I'm audible well to you all and you all can see me clearly. We'd love to have a lot of your questions at the end of the session. Whatever that you have will be, kind of guided across to us. So we'll be happy to be able to run that through with you. Please do that at the end. So we'll be happy to kind of share the question and answers bit with you. So really just talking a little bit more about Cord Life. Um, Cord Life is Asia's largest platform for stem cell banking, and it really is an amazing way for you to be able to kind of invest, in stem cell banking. And to learn more about how Cord Life works, it'll be great. You'll be receiving the call at the end of the session for a feedback to understand more about an exciting voucher that we have for all of you all towards the end, and also for the benefits of learning more about the benefits of stem cell banking. So that'll be an exciting way to actually move forward. So yes, and we'll wait for another 1 or 2 minutes, and then I'll be happy to get started shortly with all the information that I'm really excited to share with you all on this beautiful journey that we are on today together. So I hope we're doing a little bit that we can in terms of trying to keep the best of best, immunity in place from whatever we know. So I think let's essentially get started, and I think it'll be nice to kind of talk a little bit more about what gut health is first. So because the topic here today is about gut health and immunity, and once again, I'd really like to extend a warm welcome to all of you all to make the time today to be here and to be able to really invest this time in yourselves at this very important juncture in your life. And again, I'd love to really thank Cord Life for kind of having me here today, on this platform. So moving forward, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself for a moment, just for y'all to know more about me. I am a gut expert, basically an integrative gut microbiome expert and a functional nutritionist. What that typically means is that we work around gut health to overall help you to take care of all your medical conditions or to help you manage a better, healthier form of living. Why gut health? I'll just come to that in a bit shortly. But really, what we do is, even with generally in our practice, we work around getting to the root cause of any issue, be it anything from obesity to weight management to even looking at maybe gestational diabetes or thyroid during pregnancy or blood pressure or any of these concerns that you may have had before or after. And we work around getting you to kind of come around to reversing these medical conditions by using food as medicine and technically using the approaches of gut health and functional approaches of gut health to get you to the better end of this condition and let actually have control over the medical condition, then the medical condition kind of control over you. So that's really what we do, and we help you to get to really the root cause, be it a physical, pathophysiological, emotional, psychological. We work around a very holistic approach to be able to help you get to where you want in terms of your goal. So moving forward, I'm going to talk a little bit about the gut microbiome and how it affects pregnancy, and that's really why we are here today. So the most important part that I'd love to share with you is this. I think we'll talk about, I think all the mothers are really excited to really welcome this amazing new life that you are nurturing in your stomach right now out, and waiting for really the due day to come and really enjoy that moment, the very ecstatic moment. So there's so much more than that goes into this entire process, and I'd love to share that with you. So number one, it is the fact that I'd love to share the fact that there's an amazing thing about how this entire birthing process works. So we know about, I'm sure your gynac is kind of giving you an entire idea about that, but I'll talk to you from the gut health part of it, some very interesting things about the baby and you, which will be really exciting to know. And then we can move on to a little bit more of tips and all of that I want to give you today. So the most interesting part that I'd like to say is that there is a reason, obviously we know why the baby has, the whole kind of process of coming with the head down. And, when this entire process of saying that the baby comes out crying, there is really actually a larger gut mechanism which is actually at the base of this. So primarily the main thing that we have here is that when the baby comes head down, is that the head actually kind of touches or either bangs against this small pouch which is at just about at the center of the vaginal canal where the baby comes out, and that pouch really hosts a lot of amazing lactobacilli bacteria, which are really the most helpful bacteria and the most powerful beneficial bacteria that your baby can get to kind of start life in the real world. So the whole mechanism is that the baby cries because that is the way that all those bacteria which are really good go into the mouth of the baby, and that's such a fantastic start for the baby to have. Also, for the matter of fact, for the women who don't have a vaginal delivery and have a C-section, they may be kind of devoid of that particular benefit. So that's really another reason why, from the aspect of gut microbiome or gut health, obviously choosing a normal delivery has that benefit that I'd like to share with you. Another major benefit, which is about the fact, is breastfeeding, which is such a powerful tool that we all have, and it's the most amazing way that you can nourish your baby. So breastfeeding, again, for about a year or more. So I'm not going to go into the gynac guidelines of things, and I'll let that be managed by them. But I'm really looking at managing the way that you're looking at breastfeeding being so beneficial to the gut bacteria of your child, to the foundation of the immunity for your child, is what I'm really talking about here. So breastfeeding really sets up the stage for the kind of immunity that you want your child to have as they're growing up. So these were really interesting facts that I'd love to share with you. So that's why I thought that let me talk about that to you in a big way. Right. So all right, moving forward, I'd like to tell you more about the gut microbiome. So basically, the gut is your small and large intestine, and obviously houses your stomach, and your entire digestive process comes into play. But your gut is primarily your small and large intestine, and the microbiome primarily is like the ecosystem which kind of hosts an entire universe of good and bad bacteria within you, and it is everywhere. It's on our skin, it's in our vaginal kind of cavity, it's also in different places in our mouth. But most importantly, we're talking about the entire universe or ecosystem that is there in your gut or in your intestine, which plays a very important role. So today, obviously, in the midst of what are the crisis we all are going through with coronavirus, I just thought that the reason why we're talking about gut health and immunity is a very interesting fact. So about 70 to 80% of our immunity, or rather immune cells, are in your gut. So it is such an important factor for us to understand about how important gut health is, to be able to be managed to ensure that there is a great way of taking care of your gut, and so that your immunity is really in place. And that's such an important part right now for you, for your baby, and in the current scenario, immunity is such a big deal, right? So that's why we're talking about that. Another very important aspect is that this gut microbiome actually handles everything from your current mood swings, maybe in pregnancy, to your metabolism, to your immunity, to your digestion. Everything is taken care of by the gut. So that's why it's such an important aspect to take care of. Also, each one of us have a very distinct microbiome. It's not similar to either one of us at all. It's very different from person to person. So it's very important to understand that if it's as unique as your fingerprint. So one mother may not have the same microbiome kind of a composition as another mother. So as unique as the children are, it's really amazing that in the same way our gut microbiome is very unique. So these are really the couple of things that I wanted to share with you as to why it is so important to talk about gut health. One of the most important ways that you can really think about gut health is that it is really the foundation or the cornerstone of life and of good health itself, because really the digestion is the root of life, is the river of life. And it's so important for us to have a basic great way of functioning on digestion and having a good digestion to having good health. How many of us remember that maybe in the first couple of months of the pregnancy, or if you are in your first trimester, there are times where you're feeling like your stomach feels woozy, you feel like there is a little bit of juggling, or this kind of a mice running in your stomach feeling, or feeling a little bit of nausea, or feeling all of these symptoms that come in. Also, a lot of times, obviously, there is pregnancy or morning sickness that's there. But apart from that, when we're looking at, your stomach not feeling very, very good initially because your body is dealing with the newness, that is also related to how well your gut really manages itself. So that's really the connection, and that's why the gut health is so primary at this time. Quickly, I'm going to move into giving you more tips now, because that's really what we're here for, right? And I'd love to share as much as I can in this short period of time so that you can take back home as much. And even out of this, if you follow one thing or two things out of these, they will be really, really beneficial to you. So number one, I'd like to talk about the top 3 foods that can actually instantly kind of affect your microbiome. And like I said, so the very interesting part about your gut microbiome is that you can alter your gut microbiome literally by kind of eating one meal which is completely off. Sometimes can actually alter your gut microbiome, but your body is so used to balancing this back and keeping a balance that your body tries to do that ever so again and again by its own self. But a lot of times when constantly we've had things that we've not eaten that have not gone down well with your immune system or with your body, it's very, very important to understand that there is a kind of a balance here that needs to be maintained. And a lot of times that's why it's important to understand that the foods that we eat, we should understand whether they're suiting our body or not. So, irrespective of, obviously right now we're looking at pregnancy as a major factor in place, but apart from that also it's really important to be able to kind of manage or have a great way of balancing your gut microbiome. So the top 3 foods that really, really will, and something that your body may tell you a lot of times when you have something, it takes about 3 to 5 days to alter your gut microbiome for it to work well for you. So the top offender, which can actually bring down your immunity for the next 4 to 5 hours after eating and alter the balance of your good and bad bacteria and increase the bad bacteria balance, is sugar. So I think a lot of us really talk about saying that sugar is something that, a lot of times there are cravings for sugar and you feel like, no, I need to eat this. I feel like my body really, really needs that sugar in these trimesters. And, I feel like I can't live without having maybe an ice cream, or I can't stay without having a chocolate, and I need that. But I think this will really make you think that it's so important for the gut microbiome to be balanced, and for literally one sugar meal can put that off whack, and about 4 to 5 hours of immunity can be low after having anything which is high on sugar. Secondly, the same way that goes with fried food and third processed foods. So these again really, really hamper your gut microbiome in a big way, and they instantly lead to having a gut issue immediately after, so you may not necessarily have like bloating or digestion issues right after, but there can definitely be an immunity issue, and you may feel after some time that your stomach does not feel as good as it was when you were eating completely healthy. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that you want to be, so I'm not saying don't eat them at all, but having the kind of understanding or balance to know that eating these foods can cause a specific something to my system and probably kind of ward off the balance is very important. So you may tell me, okay, Janvi, so you're telling me about not eating this or not eating my chatpata craving. So some of us, talk about pregnancy being a time that you really need spicy, chatpata, salty, crunchy food. And some of us are talking about having things like, which you love to have, which is sweet. So I'm going to quickly move into giving you a quick tip from my end as to when you have these cravings and you want to kind of, prioritize your gut health and not really eat the sugar or the fried stuff, what can you have instead? So number one, you could try and actually use dry fruits as a major balance for your sugar cravings. So your dates or your figs or your raisins, whatever it is, needs to be had soaked. So you want to remove the extra heat from it, but you can definitely have that. Or even a sweet fruit, like maybe, if you're not diabetic or not pre-diabetic or not having gestational diabetes, you may want to try to have, maybe like you can have a mango, you can have like a smaller quantity, but you can have that because it will help you to feel a lot better in terms of the sugar craving. Another one that you want to try to actually do is add sweet vegetables. So sweet vegetables can be something like tubers, or when you're having yam, or if you're having, any of these which don't give you a lot of digestion, issues, are a great option for you to be able to have. So they are again a great value add when it comes to having sugar cravings. Another very interesting fact is your body clearly does not know the difference between having sugar or really having a sweet fruit. All your body needs is that it needs to feel like a sugar craving is taken care of. And that's the most important part. It's your mind which knows whether you're having the chocolate or the ice cream, or rather you're having the dry fruits or something else. So that's a very important thing to really keep in mind. Secondly, when it comes to the processed, the crunchy, spicy, chatpata foods, if you like to have, another thing that you can definitely try to have is being able to kind of put in something like maybe a makhana bhel is a great option for you to have. If some of y'all are not feeling a lot of like allergy or not feeling like certain things give you irritation, you could even try to have a little bit of peanuts which are roasted, or chana with some, kind of onion, tomatoes and all of that, and make it spicy and nice and have a healthy way of actually having something chatpata and nice. The makhana bhel also can be really interesting with chutneys and with, your onions, tomatoes, all of that, and really enjoy that meal. You don't need to always go in for a processed or a packaged high fried food. Another thing that you can do is also you can look at making certain aspects. You can actually kind of grill certain foods in the oven and make them like a tandoor and also enjoy them. That'll be a great way of also having another option. So these are really some of the best practice tips that you can take home to take care of the fact that you're eating right. Another thing that I'd love to share with you is about a very close aspect that we work on with gut health, is a kind of part of allergies. So allergies is a big one, and a lot of times a lot of mothers, expecting mothers, don't even realize that they possibly have an allergy issue with something. And probably you're eating something, it sometimes gives you nausea, it sometimes gives you a headache, it sometimes leads to giving you some itching or some development in the skin. Sometimes it leads to giving you a little bit of a, not a very good taste in the aftertaste in the mouth. There could be several ways that an allergy can present itself. So it's really important to understand and first of all recognize that there may be a possible allergen that may have disturbed your system, because obviously when you're pregnant, your system is a little more hypersensitive, and your immune system and your gut are constantly trying to guide each other to really make sure that you're eating the right things and really protecting the amazing life that's within you and protecting your health as well. So the top 6 allergens that I'd love to share with you, which could be a possibility if you want to really make a note of these, can be a possible intervention that you want to take care of. And I'll tell you how to help yourself if you think you have an allergy. Obviously, at no point am I saying that diagnose it on your own and don't take help from a gynec or a gut expert or somebody like us. Definitely, you can ask for help and first have that correctly diagnosed. But if you do feel that some of these symptoms are constantly there, sometimes even some of you may experience things like having chronic constipation or having chronic loose stool suddenly. So, or having a lot of bloating from time to time, feeling that slight heaviness over and above, so you're already dealing with this newness in the second and the third trimester, but overall also if you feel a little more bloating, you may want to look at that aspect and see what is all related to. So number 1, top allergens, I'm not going in any specific order, but you can make a note of these and see if there's anything out of this that's giving you a tough time after eating it. So any of these allergies may actually show the effect within 15 minutes of eating them to about 72 hours till they show the effect. That's something called a delayed immune response. So it's anything from maybe wheat, could be even oats, could be milk or dairy products, could be eggs, could be nuts, almonds, walnuts, could be peanuts, could be maybe some kind of fish, Obviously, we're trying to avoid really eat mindfully in terms of the fish also that we're eating. And also, so these can be ways that your body may actually give you an allergic immune response. So you want to try and ensure that you know that certain foods are probably not going down well with you. The other one or two that I have worked with my clients and I've seen more often, which are not the common ones, are sometimes something called nightshades, which are something like your brinjal, your tomatoes, your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, peppers, that could kind of give you a little bit of a boozy stomach, or largely even it could be citrus fruits which could do that to you. So, again, you want to just try and see if any of these are not going down well with you. You want to mark out to understand if there is an allergy or not. That is really an interesting fact that you want to keep in mind. So how do you take care of an allergy? Number one is to diagnose an allergy. And like I said, to ask help to be able to diagnose and not self-diagnose it. Second is the right way to do that is to put you on a 7 to a 21-day elimination of that particular food which you think is giving you symptoms. Let your gut heal back and then be able to kind of, add that back if required. If you really like that food, if you want to see if it's working back for you, then add it back into the system. So that's really the next thing that I want to talk about. The third thing that I'd love to talk to you about is common conditions with, talking about how gut health is so important in terms of managing the right kind of, food and whatever, and, having the right balance of eating the right foods, which is good for your gut. So I'm going to shortly go into telling you about what are these foods. So number one food that you want to try to have for your gut health and to maintain the gut health, because you're like, John, we're talking about all of these things, but what do you really do to take care of your gut health, right? So the top three foods that I'd like to kind of talk about today, and there is so much more that we can talk about, but because we're pressed for time and I want to talk about various aspects, I'm going to keep this short. So number one is to be able to add fiber. So it's very important to have about 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. It could be in the form of some fruits. It could be in the form of vegetables. A lot of times salads tend to do give, some kind of, gas or give uneasiness. So, and right now, I'd really suggest in the current situation also, you'd want to try and have maybe more soups, or want to have stir fries, or have vegetables, or steam the vegetables and have them if you want, rather than just having a raw salad. So you want to have about 3 to 4 servings of these a day, because they are great for your body. They're great for the good beneficial bacteria in your gut, and that's very important for you and for your child. So again, talking about fiber and the good bacteria, again, there are 2 strains of bacteria which are very important for you and for your child. There is the lactobacilli and the bifidobacterium. Bifidobacterium is also a very important one, which is, very important for the child's development and growth in a very important way. So you want to ensure that you have a good balance of them in your gut, because, that's really primary to good health. So again, like I mentioned, that adding fiber is a great way. You want to try and add more whole foods, more, nuts, seeds, legumes, vegetables, fruits, all of that really into your diet, because they will give you the kind of good whole foods that you need to have for your child and for your, fiber intake, and overall really benefit both of you. The second thing that you want to add in is probiotics. I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard of probiotics and how they are really helpful. So probiotics you can actually add is, I'm going to give you what is probiotics first and then give you a few examples for it. So probiotics are primarily a beneficial bacteria or the good bacteria in your system. And what it does is, like I said, it helps you balance the main microbiome balance of the good and bad bacteria. So as long as they're in the right proportion, they can live in harmony and they're great for your system. Even the bad bacteria are good for you if they're in the right proportion. But when one overseeds the other and the bad bacteria goes up, that's when the problems come in. So to balance your good bacteria, you need to have more probiotic foods that you may get from a yogurt, or you will get from fermented vegetables. You can probably try a miso soup. You can even have things like maybe, kimchi, a little bit of, once in a while, if you want to have a small quantity, don't make it very pungent so that some of y'all may feel nausea or discomfort with that. Again, remember, all of these things are bio-individual to each person. There is no standard rule that all of these things will suit everyone, because each experience of pregnancy is different and unique. So you want to understand, and if there are certain things that you don't think will go well, you want to try to look at the other options that I've mentioned for you. So fermented vegetables go well with some of the people. They really manage to help have a better digestion. So like a kimchi or a sauerkraut. Also another thing that you can try and do is probably have some home-based made low oil, low salt pickles made at home. Basic pickles, not like a raw papaya or a raw mango or whatever, but the basic you can try and use and make some pickles, and you can really interesting. You can make like out of maybe a carrot, or you can make it out of tindi or anything of that sort. You can make a pickle out of that and use that, and that's a great option as an alternative to have, and that's good for your gut. Also, apart from that, you can speak to your gynac to give you a good probiotic, which will help you and your baby during this time. And I think it'll be great if you can ask your doctor for it, and that will be the right thing to do. Secondly, moving forward is the prebiotics. Prebiotics are again great options to add, because prebiotics are what feed the good bacteria in your system. That is really primarily talking about the beneficial bacteria. It's like how we need our food to really survive and stay on track, right? In the same way, the prebiotics are something that is needed by your body, by your gut, to make the good beneficial bacteria survive. So, for the people who are not gens, the common prebiotics that you get in your food are probably onion and garlic. You can always have them in a very small quantity. Again, if they're very pungent for you during pregnancy, you can stir fry them and have them. So if you'd like that, you can definitely have them. They are really beneficial for your system. So I've covered a lot of these things about your gut and about what you could do in terms of allergies, and I also spoke about what you really want to do in terms of avoiding the top 3 offenders, which can kind of take off your balance of your gut. I'm going to quickly move into talking about 2-3 other things which are really interesting, and maybe some of you all may have an issue with these things currently. So number 1 is gestational diabetes. So gestational diabetes and your gut microbiome have a really huge role to play together. I don't have much time to go into too many details, so I'm just going to give you a quick tip for all of these possible concerns that you may have. So if any of these relate to you or relate to any of your friends who's also pregnant, please feel free to share. And I'm also happy to be able to help you to understand more about it. If you'd like to get on a one-on-one call with me and understand more, we'll come to that discussion towards the end. So number 1 that you want to keep in mind is that when you have gestational diabetes, you may want to try and make sure that you're reducing your intake of rice, because again, rice is basically easily broken down to starches and simple sugars. So you may want to try and do that. Another option that you may want to try and see is if your gestational diabetes is still not under control, or you may want to try and exclude the milk. So again, you may say, okay, when do I get my protein and calcium from? So there are other sources like nachni, green leafy vegetables. There could be other foods like maybe a small banana, or there could be nuts and seeds through with sesame seeds. All of these are really high on calcium. Protein you'll get from your almond milk. You can have, if you don't have an allergy, you can have any if you have eggs or anything that works well with you during your pregnancy, you can have that in terms of a protein option. Oats have some protein, mushrooms have some protein. So, depending on whatever that goes down well with you, you may want to try and have those things. Like again, I'm saying that it's very different from person to person. So again, you can try and kind of switch off the milk for some time, and probably that will bring down the gestational diabetes that you have. You want to try and look at that. Secondly, you want to try and look at reducing reducing the way that your blood pressure is kind of working. So blood pressure is a very important aspect. So again, if you have hypertension during your pregnancy, you may want to try and obviously reduce the amount of salt that you're using. And simple things like you want to try and use maybe some peppers, or you want to try and use some chili, or you want to use some garlic or ginger, or lime zest, to be able to give you the flavors that you need and reduce the salt intake, which is very important. Again, your salt intake has a very big role with your gut microbiome, and also can alter your mood. Okay, so having really high salt intake can alter the way your mood also works. So you want to try and ensure that if you have blood pressure, or rather high blood pressure, hypertension during pregnancy or not, you want to try and keep your salt intake at a very moderated level. Last, I want to talk about another very interesting aspect is from the angle of these common issues that we see during pregnancy is thyroid. So thyroid, a lot of women also have complained of having thyroid, and really thyroid and gut have a very, very great connection through having the issue of something called a leaky gut, where there is a lot of toxins from your blood that can go into your intestines and really cause this, kind of a complete havoc in your system, where your immune system is very, very inflamed. And I'm not going to go into the details, but primarily for thyroid, if you see that your thyroid is high during the time of your pregnancy, you want to, so apart from, again, remember one thing, the doctors may recommend or may not recommend certain medications or not. That is definitely, at no point am I saying that do not follow those. Please follow those. But apart from that, these are simple things that you can do at home without having any other side effects. So you want to try and be able to avoid wheat, rava, dalia, maida as much as possible if you have a thyroid during pregnancy or even otherwise, because they do have a very, very great connection to play. So these are the top foods that I wanted to take care of if you have any of these conditions. And I'll be happy to really elaborate for any one of y'all who need more personal guidance in detail later on. Moving to the last 2-3 things before we move into questions and things like that is about a lot of women also who come to me with pregnancy and for a better gut health composition complain of having constipation. So one definite tip, and a lot of foods which actually help with constipation apart from fiber and having water are very, very heaty. So I would like to give you one great recommendation that you want to try and have, which is non-heaty and which you don't want to try and have something very hot, because that's not very good. And also the weather right now is hot, so you want to try and have a right balance. So constipation, for that, you may want to try and have, say, half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of jeera powder. So jeera powder, again, just, kind of, you can grate it, or maybe you can ground it well and use that in a lukewarm water and have that. That will help you stimulate peristalsis, better motility, lesser pressure to go to motion next day, and not give you that, need to kind of put pressure on your stomach, which you should not, rather don't want to do in that way. So you can definitely try and do that at night after dinner. You can try and have a cup of lukewarm water with some jeera, which will help you to be able to go better the next day and not increase extra heat in the body. Second common complaint that I get from the people that I work with during pregnancy for their gut health is to do with sometimes having a lot of gas and flatulence. They feel like they're kind of passing gas through the time over the trimesters. It increases. So there's another tip that I'd like to give you here is you can definitely have a little bit of maybe half a teaspoon of soft. So soft, you can just soak soft for some time and use that and have that in a glass of water every time that you can have a glass. Maybe say if it was more after lunch or dinner, you can try and have a little bit of soft. That will be really, really helpful. You can also chew on some soft. Don't let it be the sugar coated soft. Try to keep it very, very basic and natural. Or the other option is to have some mint leaves. So 3-4 mint leaves can be put into a glass of water, and you can chew those mint leaves and have them. That will overall help you to be able to have lesser gas. And another last thing that I'd like to talk about is a lot of women face acidity as an issue from time to time, or feel like the acid reflux or whatever. So you can definitely, again, mint leaves are a great option for that also, ideally, because we don't want to have too much. So maybe from person to person, you may want to have half a teaspoon of sabja. But again, sometimes it's very, very cooling for the body, and sometimes you feel like, no, I don't want to have something which is very cold for my system or not very hot. So you can stick to having mint leaves. That will help you to be able to reduce the amount of acidity that's there, because it cools the system down. And last but not the least, I would love to share with you one very, very amazing exercise that you can do every other day to increase your digestive force and to improve your breathing at this point in time, to help you relax and de-stress, because sleep, immunity, overall gut health, food, they all play such an important role towards nourishing this beautiful life that's there within you, and also your life and your well-being. So I'm just going to do one odd demo of what I'd like you to do, and you can watch me and follow it. So we practice a lot of, we also kind of ask our clients to practice Qigong, which is another very, very beautiful art technique that you can use to be able to, like how we have Tai Chi, we have Qigong, which is a lot of energy work. And we say that this is a very simple way of doing that, which you can do sitting. After, whenever you want to increase, you feel your digestion has become slow, your body has become overall slow, this will improve the digestive force, and you can do it just about before lunch, you can do that to improve your digestive force, or even out, even before dinner. So last thing I'm going to end with is doing this simple exercise of keeping your hands down, okay, and lifting it all the way up. And as you breathe out, again go up. One last time. Do it very easy with a very, very nice flow. It's just simple movement of your hands. You can do it sitting, you can do it standing. That'll be a great way to do that. And then another practice that you can try and do, which is called diaphragmatic breathing to stress. Whenever you're very stressed or anxious, you want to try and do that to calm you down in the moment. It's just to keep your hand on your stomach and just breathe all the way from your stomach. So I'll just show you one last demonstration of that. So really taking the deepest breath from your stomach. Don't have to put a lot of pressure on your stomach or anything like that, but you can definitely do that. That will help you to be able to feel much, much better overall and help you to de-stress very, very easily. Just moving forward, these are my details. I hope you'll enjoy the session, and I'm happy to take all your questions, whatever that you have right now about gut health or about pregnancy. And I think we'll have Ashutosh helping us out with that in terms of the questions that you have on the chat. I'd love to, for any information, I'm very, very happy. We do have, again, I'd like to thank CordLife for having me here on this session today. I hope you all were able to take back home integral information about what you can do. I'll just like to do a 2-minute recap with you so that you have all the information in place. We started with talking about what is gut health and how breastfeeding and vaginal delivery is really more helpful. Again, a very interesting fact that comes to my mind is that really, even the strains of microbiome that your child has actually decides more about how your child's personality will be. So anything from the child being more shy to being more aggressive or more playful or really being full of energy or being very observant, all of these things can actually also be determined by the microbiome strains or the bacteria strains that your system has. So or your child has. So it's so really amazing, this whole science, and it's developing more and more. So that is another thing. We also moved through the top 3 offenders which could alter your gut microbiome instantly and reduce your immunity, and options for those cravings that you have. Number 3, we went into the allergies of how it could actually, the top allergens and offenders which could be a possibility and how they can present themselves in different ways. Next, we went into the top 3 ways to actually help your gut health feel better with fiber, prebiotics, and probiotics. After that, we went into really talking about major issues that we normally see across pregnancy that a lot of women face. It's from gestational diabetes. So we looked at the common top things that you want to try to kind of change in your dietary lifestyle patterns to help your gut health and overall health to balance with diabetes, gestational diabetes, hypertension during pregnancy, and thyroid during pregnancy, and also the common complaints of constipation, gas, and acidity during this time. And we ended it with an amazing demonstration of a Qigong digestive force to increase your digestive force, and also some practice of diaphragmatic breathing. So thank you so much for really being a part of this with us. My details are on the screen, so you can definitely follow us on Janvi Chitalia Official on Instagram. You can also look us up on the www.janvichitalia.com on our website for more articles on gut health and to know more. Our email and our phone is here for you to be able to call us for an appointment. And again, we do have an exciting voucher that we're going to talk about just about, after this. So we have this entire amazing option for you to be able to have here. Again, I want to take this last opportunity to say that thank you so much, CordLife, for really organizing this amazing platform for me to be able to give you all the inputs about gut health and really have an amazing time to address y'all. And, CordLife again is, they're going to be calling y'all at the end of this, kind of talk that we have today after this to take a feedback and to tell you all more about the benefits of stem cell banking for all you wonderful mothers, and also be able to help you with how to know how to redeem this voucher that we have here. So there is a voucher from Mama Earth that you can actually redeem with this for 400 rupees as a gift voucher, and we also you do get a chance to have free consultation with me to be able to talk to me on the phone and talk about the issues that you have related to pregnancy and gut health or anything else, and I'll be more than happy, and that's another part of the voucher. We're happy to help you during this beautiful journey and time of your life. A very, very precious one for you. And thank you so much. So I'm going to just, kind of connect with Ashutosh to be able to take forward any of the questions that you'll have moving forward right now at this time on the chat. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful, patient audience.
Thanks a lot, Janvi. I have Shilpi on board. She is going to read out questions for you, and you can answer. Another thing is, since we have time foundation, it might happen that all the questions we are unable to address it over here. But don't worry, we have noticed, we have taken all the questions, and after the session, we are going to answer it and share the same via mail itself. So over to Shilpi.
Can you have a little louder? Can you speak a little louder?
Hello.
Yeah,
am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Okay. So I'll start with the question answer. The
Yes.
first question is from Ankita Yadav. What do we do to overcome morning sickness?
Right. So I think the most important thing that you can do, see again, it may vary from person to person in terms of how the morning sickness may be. A lot of times I think it helps to be able to, like I said, have some mint leaves or to be able to cool your system down at that point in time. So you can have something like, maybe say, like I said, mint leaves is one option that you can have. You can also try to be able to work around some breathing techniques of diaphragmatic breathing to calm your system down for some time, because a lot of times it is that there is an actual need to go and actually feel the need to feel lighter once you throw up, but sometimes there is more of this feeling of nausea that's constantly there rather than just having to completely go out and need to kind of throw out the contents from your system. So sometimes just using the diaphragmatic breathing also will help your immune system calm down a little bit and may help to reduce the kind of impact of that nausea that you feel at that point in time. Also sometimes maybe putting in like a keeping a clove or keeping some little bit of a rock salt piece in the mouth will also help to be able to reduce the nausea. But sometimes I think also when it's really, really bad, it's important to let the system kind of be able to get out its comfort that it needs. So that's really important to do. So don't really hold back if it's really, really bad. Yes.
The next question is from Swati Agarwal. I am in the 6th month. I had bleeding in the first month. Should I have soup in summers? Tomatoes with seeds, without seeds?
So I'd suggest, that you definitely want to try to keep in mind that yes, you don't want to have something very, very heated. See, you had that in the first month and you've not bled after that. I definitely suggest that in terms of food, you want to try and avoid anything that's heaty. Even more just simply because, see, your body may be able to take a lukewarm soup. You may not want to have a very, very hot soup. So you may want to try and definitely have a lukewarm soup if you like and not extremely hot. But also it's very important that your mind feels satisfied. See, we really believe in having a functional approach is a very holistic approach. So if it's going to be at the back of your mind constantly that you're really, really, really anxious or worried if having something hot will give you bleeding now that you're in the 6th month, then I'd suggest just stick to a very, very light lukewarm soup and not have a hot soup. And yes, I would suggest that if you've had this issue, then you may want to try to not have the seeds in the tomato and get rid of the seeds, then have the tomato soup. You can add some more carrot if you would like to kind of balance out the tomato kind of part of it.
The next question is from Sumina Debroy. Can you discuss about foods that cause heartburn? I am 7 months pregnant and some days I get a burning sensation after drinking milk or egg, and the other days are great.
So, Sumana, again, the other important aspect is there could be several factors or reasons why there is a different response from your body on certain days. two things that I like to suggest to you is you may want to really check in with yourself that at the time that you feel that there is an issue with feeling a heartburn after having it, you may want to try and see what are the other things that you're having along with it that probably are together. When they come in a combination, they cause that heartburn. Maybe it's on a day that you've not slept really well the night before, or maybe you've been a little anxious or stressed. You also want to look at the way your mind is feeling to ensure that you know that whether these are also triggering factors, and while as to why there's a difference on certain days and not on certain days. But my other suggestion is that if you feel like this is coming from time to time, the best thing to do is there it may be more than acidity. It may be like sometimes your immune system, like I said, is hypersensitive right now and maybe leading to that kind of an allergic response sometimes. So maybe you want to try and see to not have milk and eggs for 3 to 4 days or 5 days and see overall if it really makes you feel better, and then reintroduce it back and see if you feel better with that. So that's one thing. And for acidity, like I mentioned, you may want to try again mint leaves are great, or if you want to try a small quantity of sabja, maybe just half a teaspoon of it because it's very, very cold. So you want to try and have that. And you may want to try and have that in water and see if that subsides that. But I think the main thing is making the right choice.
The next question is from Kriti Sachdeva. Is third month tough for all? I am feeling very weak and dizzy recently.
So see, again, like I mentioned, darling, Preeti, that every person has a different journey with pregnancy, and it's not all the same for each person. So definitely there may be women who also had a very similar experience, like the third month does not make them feel, they're feeling quite not the best at that time. And there are women who have a great third month. So I think it's a very important factor that you need to keep in mind, of the fact that there is a possibility that there is, that's the way that your body is responding. You may definitely want to check in with your doctor to see if there's any kind of a basic supplementation that you could take as a multivitamin or a B complex that may help you at this point in time, alongside with all the folic acid and everything else that you're taking. Another thing is you may want to try and probably see if you want to increase maybe the amount of fruits that you're having. So overall, having a better sugar balance, which is a natural form of sugar, may also help you to feel more energy overall, and also to keep checking if your emotions are overall okay or not. Sometimes if you feel like you're not able to have a clear digestive system, that may also lead to having more dizziness or weakness. So you want to check on that separately also, and I'm happy to be able to answer that question for you offline and understand more as to why you're feeling like that.
Next question from Jyoti Pachisia. Is milk powder safe during pregnancy? Does it have any effect on gut health?
So again, milk powder, again, Jyoti, it is bio-individual with each person. There are women who I have worked with who have been absolutely okay with having milk powder during their pregnancy, and some have not. So I think the more important factor to ask here is not about whether it is or it is not. It's really about how well does it go with you. Again, I suggest that if you think that milk powder sometimes gives you digestive trouble, or you don't feel very, very good with having that continuously, my suggestion would be that you may want to try to actually not have the milk powder and try to have the basic milk, or maybe have the A2 milk. Or if you feel like milk overall does not make you feel very good, then you may want to try and move to an almond milk for some time, made at home, and see. Try to do as much as you can that you can have prepare at home and from the natural sources. Then try to go all out with maybe dabbas or kind of cartons and things like that. So I'd suggest the better it is that if you can make even almond milk at home, if you think that this doesn't go down well. If you ask me as a personal suggestion, I would suggest try and avoid the milk.
Another question on some tips for gestational diabetes and low placenta.
So again, I'd suggest that in terms of low placenta, that is really something that needs to be discussed more in detail, and I would definitely need to understand. I will be very honest. There is nothing specifically that I can tell you about what you could do in terms of a low placenta right now, alongside the gut health. And that's something discussed as to that's happened over the time with Gynec, and I need to understand that case properly before making any comments on that. Number two, with gestational diabetes, definitely I'd like to suggest that apart from having, so if you think that your sugars are really, really not in a good kind of a check, then you want to try and be able to use the right format of having maybe say lesser even natural sugars, like maybe even when you're having fruits, or even if you're having say wheat also can be cut down. You can try to use maybe say a jawari a little bit, or maybe you want to have like a rajgira or a amaranth or a brown rice, that may be better than just having wheat or sugar-based foods that will bring down overall the chances of having a higher count of gestational diabetes. And another factor that you want to keep in mind overall is your stress levels and your sleep, because they also have a huge impact along with your gut health on gestational diabetes. So that will again impact the microbiome, and that will lead to more elevated sugar levels. So you want to try and balance all of these out.
Are flax seeds good during pregnancy? If yes, what amount should be taken?
So again, remember one thing, like I said, that each of these questions sometimes do really vary from person to person. Yes, flax seeds are very, very heaty. So there are two ways that I like to talk about flax seeds. Number one, that if you think that there is already, like I said, that somebody mentioned about having bleeding or feeling like there's a lot of excess heat in their body all the time, or feel like they feel like really, really hot, they feel perspiring all the time, or they feel like there's a kind of a fire inside their stomach sort of a feeling, they may want to avoid flaxseed completely. Flaxseed, again, if you want to have, I'll suggest to have a very, very small quantity, specifically as a general guideline. Like I said, on person to person, it may vary how much we can give, but ideally my tip for flaxseed is, number one, to have it absolutely non-roasted, because all the properties are there, and when you roast it, all the properties die. Grind it well, put it in an opaque container, and then store it in the refrigerator. And I would suggest at best that if you are having, like say, a bowl of curd or a chaas or something, you want to try and put that half a teaspoon of flaxseed to start with in a colder form of a drink, and then have it, so that it may kind of help you nullify the effect of it being really heaty.
Okay, so the next question is, can we have Yakult as a probiotic?
So like I mentioned, Yakult is really, really, so like I said, I don't want to talk about brand names specifically, but as a matter of fact, I'd like to say that Yakult has recently come out with a blue kind of a base where, they have like a lesser sugar kind of a variant that they've come out with. So ideally, my suggestion would be that if you want to try to have probiotics in a way which are naturally better for you overall, and you want to also try to be able to have ask your gynac to give you the right probiotic, which has the perfect strains of the quantities of lactobacilli and bifidobacterium, which are very, very important for your good gut health and for the baby's good gut health to be developed. So I'd suggest not Yakult, but you can try and go in for a different probiotic, or really try the natural sources.
Another question is, I am drinking milk with turmeric at night. Will it help in constipation? I have tried jeera water and leafy veggies, but not much of help. I'm taking iron extra. This is from Brinda.
Okay, Brinda. So see, I think primarily, obviously, you've kind of already notified that, having extra iron is primarily the cause as to why you're having constipation as a major complaint right now. Milk and turmeric, I don't think is really going to help with constipation. It may help you more with better sleep than constipation. What I would suggest is, if you're already having jeera and that's not going on well, then maybe you can try and have, say, after lunch or after dinner, or at least one time in the day, you can start with the psyllium husk. That's like the isabgol that you could start. Or you can start more sources of having soluble fiber. So for soluble fiber, you can have oats, you can have barley. These are good sources of soluble fiber. So that may also help you to be able to manage to have better motions. And the other thing is that alongside with your meals, you may want to try to have a bowl of, or maybe a glass of, say, lukewarm water after your large meal, so that it kind of facilitates the motion and you're able to go better after your meals, or kind of creates that softness of the stool in that.
Any suggestions for a pregnant female who has colitis?
So see, again, I'd need to understand what kind of a colitis that is. So I think whoever is asked this question will make
This is
sense.
Suchitra.
Sorry?
The question is from Suchitra.
Yes, Suchitra. So Suchitra, I would suggest that I would be very happy to get on a call with you, because again, colitis, can have different ways of presentation. Is it like an ulcerative colitis, or what kind of a colitis is it? Are you having any kind of a Crohn's kind of symptoms? So it's very important for me to understand what you have at this point, And because colitis is a slightly more advanced issue and advanced topic, then I'd really like to take on a proper history before I give you any kind of specific guidelines. Also, obviously, I need to understand what is the main issue that you're facing right now with the symptoms of colitis. So I think I'd like to take that offline. So Suchitra, please feel free to definitely give me a call, and I'd love to be able to help you.
Next question is from Krutika. I am 7.5 months pregnant and I have been using Sabza for almost more than 2 months. I use 1.5 spoon of Sabza in water at night before sleeping, and it has benefited me with respect to digestion. However, you mentioned that one needs to have only half a spoon. Is there any side effect of having it more frequently?
Correct. Right. So, see, Preeti, I think the important part over here is, like I said, that I mentioned whatever I did with a bio-individuality in mind, that each person may not be able to take something which is very, very cold for the system. So now again, there could be certain people who have different, everybody has different, what do you say, constitutions in terms of saying heaty or non-heaty constitutions of the body. So it's very important to be able to understand what constitution you have. So now if you've been doing 1.5 teaspoon and it's been working well with you, there is absolutely no issue if you have that. But it's really, so I have given you a basic guideline of half a teaspoon, keeping in mind that we don't know the general population who's, obviously everybody may not have the same experience with Sabja, because like I said, for some people they find it too thanda and the system does not, or too cold and the body cannot do well with it. So we've seen certain cases like that. So that's something bare minimum half a teaspoon. But if 1.5 teaspoon is working well with you, it's helping your digestion, which surely will. It may be helping acidity, it may be helping a lot of things. You can continue to have that if it's not doing really harm.
A question from Sabina. Is canned juice, Real or Tropicana, advisable to have during pregnancy?
The answer would be an absolute no. So I would really suggest that you want to try to be able to avoid anything that is canned or processed as much as possible from outside, because obviously, it's taken care of or probably made a number of days back. It's manufactured a long while back. There may be a lot of preservatives that are there on the shelf. Obviously, at the same time, it does not hold in almost any nutritional value by the time it reaches your stomach or your palate. So I'd really suggest that if you want to really have a juice and you don't have gestational diabetes, the sugars are not high, you're not really overtly gaining a lot of weight, then you may want to, or obviously your microbiome is in good balance, you don't have digestive issues, I'd suggest that you want to have a fruit juice at home specifically. More importantly, I'd suggest that you want to have a fruit. I would always suggest a fruit over a juice anytime. But if you still like to have that, one nice glass of juice, then please make it fresh and make sure that as much fiber that remains on the top of the receiver, or if you have a slow processing juicer, use that so that you can use in as much fiber from the fruit and make it beneficial for you and your baby.
Janvi, we have a lot of questions flowing in. So we'll just take the final 2 questions here. One is from Dia. What to do if we get a sudden acidity attack at nights, pain in chest and back due to acidity? What can we do at that time? And as I get acidity due to milk, can I take cold milk?
So number one, Dia, I would suggest that you don't want to try and have any kind of, at number one, you want to try and probably not have milk, even though maybe cold milk generally does do you better with acidity. But overall, if just having milk is going to give you an acidity issue, you may want to try to not have milk at all in the first place at that point in time, because sometimes it may alternatively, even if it's cold, aggravate a certain inflammatory response and give you more of an acid reflux. Again, you may want to try to have, like I mentioned, jeera or saunf as an option. That may be very helpful for you to be able to have that, because that will really probably help you to calm down. Also, you want to try and do 2-3 things. That you want to try and make sure that there is at least a 3-hour gap between your food and between the time that you sleep, because sometimes it's probably something to do with something called a loose LES sphincter, where there could be a possible gut reflux that may happen, where the contents which are there Obviously, because what is happening is as you're pregnant and as you go into more and more trimesters, your stomach, like everything is pushed upwards, right? Diaphragm is completely almost compressed because everything goes upward with the amount of space that your body needs to be able to hold the womb and the baby. So what happens is that leads to more of an acid reflux feeling. So you want to try and keep a 3 hour gap. You want to try and have jeera and maybe soft. And the last thing that you want to try and do is probably want to try with having a slightly more elevated kind of a way of sleeping with, say, half, maybe another blanket or maybe a thin pillow over a regular pillow to kind of keep that elevation to help you to take care of this.
Okay. Question from Diana. What is your opinion on eating fish during pregnancy, especially considering the mercury content in them?
Again, I would suggest that, currently, I mean, also more in the current situation, Diana, I would suggest that fish again, very, very bio-individual. Like I said, it can vary in the way that kind of responds to each person's body. But I think at this point in time, with the current situation and with the coronavirus and everything that's, we're really in the middle of a pandemic that we're trying to face, I suggest that we want to try to have less meat as much as possible at this point in time. That will really be helpful to be able to make that step right now, because more even from the source of where it's coming, the way it's packaged, from where you're picking it up, all those things are also really an important factor here. So yes, even the mercury content and may vary. I'm happy to take you through Diana step by step if you like, over fishes, which will help you better if you want to have otherwise, which have probably lesser mercury content. But again, even then, the way that they have kind of been caught, the way that they have been processed to be able to keep them in a way that you can have them on your shelf. These are all factors right now I think important to consider too. So I'd suggest right now try and avoid fish.
A question from Komal. What is the best food to improve blood flow towards the baby?
So again, I think the most important thing that you want to have, to see again, like I said, that it's very important to understand that these factors, again, every person has a different way that the system or the blood circulation or the way that the system functioning works. It's very, very important. I do believe the one ingredient that I think will help increase blood circulation overall is omega-3 fats. So omega-3 fatty acids are very, very important. We also know that they play a huge important role in the brain development for the child. It also plays a very, very integral role in blood circulation overall, increasing and improving blood circulation. And it's also a good fat, right? So we want to try and balance our food of fats that we're eating to the right fats of having monounsaturated fats and having omega-3s. So the sources for omega-3 could be walnuts. Again, could be a small amount of flaxseed could be added into your plan. Again, walnuts can be soaked and had. You don't want to have just walnuts plain because they could be heaty. You want to have 2 to 3 walnuts daily, which are soaked. You can have some chia seeds. Chia seeds again are a great source of omega-3. Again, fishes, again, we just spoke about that right now. So that is another source of omega-3. But if we are not having that, and if you are vegetarian or whatever, then you want to try and stick to having walnuts. You want to try and stick to having chia seeds and maybe a small quantity of flaxseed, and that will overall help with extra, better omega-3. It'll be really, really helpful. You may even want to ask sometimes if you'd like to have, a smaller dose of a supplement for that also with your doctor if required.
One final question. Please give diet tips for getting rid of UTI. I don't take high sugar food. I tried taking milk, buttermilk, etc. and also tried avoiding them. Nothing helped me. Having recurrent UTI, I am in 7th month of pregnancy. The question is from Renuka. And another one is suggestions for hemorrhoids.
So again, Renuka, my suggestion again with you clearly would be that, so you mentioned that you try to have buttermilk and milk and try to avoid it also. You're not having high sugar foods, but I need to understand at the baseline if there is a possibility of a condition called, apart from the UTI, if there is a condition of candidiasis. Now, if there is a candidiasis alongside with the UTI, we would need to understand more in detail as to why it's happened and what is the possible trigger for it to happen. So in such cases, just to give a tip may not be helpful, but it's important to understand, like I said, the root cause of where it's coming from and what it could be transcending into. So I'd really suggest that, Renuka, you want to give me a call, that will be helpful. That's number one. Number two, somebody asked about hemorrhoids. So
Hemorrhoids.
This question, yeah. So hemorrhoids, again, the only major thing that you want to try to do with hemorrhoids is to make sure that you're increasing the amount of fiber and water you're having. So standard staple to take care of your hemorrhoids or piles or any of these issues that you could have subsequently is to increase the amount of soluble fiber also. So there is a balance of fiber which is insoluble, which comes from your vegetables and all of that. And there is the soluble fiber, like I mentioned, which comes from your oats, which comes from your apple, which comes from your barley. So you want to try and have a balance of both soluble and insoluble fiber to help you take care of the hemorrhoids. 3 to 4 bowls full of that with fruits and vegetables are great for your system. Obviously, try to have fruits in the first half of the day, more vegetables the second half of the day, and you want to have at least 2 to 3 liters of water. So that will really be able to help you have a kickstart with hemorrhoids, and that should be able to help you take care of that.
We'll close the Q&A. We have lots of more questions, but we will have to take it. We will take the answers and share with all the participants here via mail. Our team will be getting to you.
Yeah, so I'll be very happy to solve any of your queries, ladies. For the ones, I'm really sorry if I've not been able to answer some of you all, or you have not been able to kind of get through your questions. I'm more than happy to be able to answer each one of your queries over. We have the voucher where you can actually get in touch, and and we can definitely try to have a chat about the same, and I'll be happy to take you all through the entire thing together. So also, like I mentioned, thank you so much again, Cod Life, for having me on board. Feel free to get in touch with us. Our number and details are mentioned here. You can get in touch with us over a call, and I think Cod Life will be able to coordinate that for us. And you can follow us on Janvi Chitalia Official, or see our Instagram, see our Instagram page, and obviously also see our website on www.janvichitalia.com. I'd really like to thank Cod Life for this wonderful opportunity and a lovely chance to meet your lovely mothers. Thank you so much for being so patient, such a lovely audience.
We invite all the participants to please drop in your feedback in the chat box.
Yes, Cod Life would love to have feedback from you all in the chat. And thank you so much. Really been an amazing session.